Yeah, so I just kind of like I want to repeat or ride the wave of the theme of putting one foot in front of the other and being uncomfortable but still trying things out. So kind of in the interest of that theme, looking back in your early days of ACT when you were stumbling through it, what was the most important piece of feedback that you received?
When I was first starting, I was trying stuff that clearly wasn't like my own style and wasn't going to work for me, and I was fumbling and bumbling along. I kind of panicked, and I called up Steve Hayes, who's my mentor in grad school. I was like, "Can you meet with me?" And he said, "Yeah." We met in his office, and I said, "Steve, I don't know if I can do this. I mean, what is Charlie Catania going to think? What's Linda LeBlanc going to think? What's Dick Malott going to think? What's Jim Carr going to think? They're going to think I'm a quack." And Steve just looked at me and he said, "Yeah, yeah, they probably are. What are you going to do? You can keep doing things that kind of work, or you can push the science forward so that ABA is even more effective than it has been. What are you going to do?" I guess he didn't give me advice. He asked me a question to answer my question. So my question to you, Trevor, is what are you going to do?
I'm going to ask you another question if that's okay.
Okay, go ahead.
So it feeds quite nicely into my next question, because that conversation with your mentor could potentially have represented an obstacle that you had to overcome, to be uncomfortable, but to what are you going to do? I'm going to keep going. So I wonder if on the other side of that, do you have a story about an obstacle that you've come against that you were unable to overcome?
You can see that I didn't prepare for these questions. I was just like throwing questions at me. I have an answer to that. Yeah, I have the history that I have. I have no other history than my own history. In many ways, there is nothing I can do except what I do, given the immediate conditions of reinforcement, my history over my lifetime of reinforcement, and my genetic makeup. There's nothing I can do other than what I'm doing. There are no available responses other than the ones that I am emitting at this particular moment. So you look at me, and what you see is not necessarily what you get, because there's all that other stuff. But what you see when you look at me is I'm in a month and a half, I'm going to be 60 years old. So I call myself 60. I'm a 60-year-old white man with all the letters behind my name. And that gives me tremendous power and privilege and bias, prejudice that I have no way to step outside of. That's the reality that I live. It's very easy for me to take anything that I read about and make it mine and make money doing it. And that's my privilege. And to the extent that I'm able to recognize it and own it and acknowledge it and give credit where credit is due and make opportunities for people with less given and unearned opportunities, new opportunities to obtain reinforcement. To the extent that I do that, then I'm making reparations for the harm that those who have come before me with this that you see have done. It doesn't matter that it's not stuff that I've done. It matters that there is an imbalance. And I haven't been able to do everything that needs to be done. And given my history of reinforcement, there are certain things that are difficult for me to catch and to stop. You know, phylogenetically, between lifetime learning and ontogenically within lifetime learning has prepared us to compete. Well, my within lifetime learning has really, really prepared me to compete. I'm really, really good at competing, and I'm not a particularly good athlete, team athlete. I'm a pretty good rock climber. I was a competitive rock climber at one point, but I compete with my words. And phylogeny and ontogeny have also prepared us to cooperate. To the extent that we're able to balance out the reinforcers for competing and cooperating, we're likely to be effective in the long term, over time. But due to my background, due to my history, I respond to these competitive reinforcers, and competition repertoire is very frequently selected. And those are the behaviors that you frequently see with me. And so it's very important for me to ask you to pick me up and to help me by creating the contingencies where cooperation and competition get balanced. I would say that that's one thing that I don't have the tools by myself. I need the tools that all of us can provide for me and for each other.
Thanks. Trav, that answer your question?
I appreciate the thoughtfulness of your response. Thank you.